Welcome to the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. What do we got today, Rick?
We got the Week 8 waiver wire.
Welcome to the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. Here's your host, Morgan Colby and Rick Lemon.
Welcome to the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. What's poppin', Rick?
What's up, dude?
Got a slight change of scenery.
Yeah, I could tell. I was like, what is he doing?
Moved the camera over a little bit and changed out the microphone. Making slight upgrades to what is my empty office. Actually, it's filled with garbage.
But surely.
It's filled with garbage. Trying to buy a house.
Yeah. Once we get this podcast really on the floor, hitting and running, then we're going to deck out our little office area, right?
Yeah, of course.
Dude,
of course.
imagine
Next
just
season.
Like fat heads in the back.
Yeah, all you've wanted is
TVs.
fat heads. You already kind of got fat heads right now in your background.
The trophies.
Except it's like a picture. Is that Kevin Youkilis?
Yes, it is. It is Kevin Youkilis.
Anyway, welcome to the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. My name is Morgan Colby. I got Rick Lemon with me as always. And today we got Week 8 waiver wire. It is Week 8. That means that there is only 6 weeks to go in your fantasy season. If you do 13 weeks. If you do 12 weeks,
kind of weird.
That's kind of weird. Yeah, there's only like 5 weeks for you.
We think you're weird.
And then there are leagues that do 2-week playoffs, but they only let 4 people in their playoffs. So that's a 14-week season. So maybe you have...
That's kind of lame.
Yeah, that is kind of lame. But maybe you have 7 weeks in your season. I don't know. All I know is that generally speaking, you're halfway through. So we're going to guide you through your Week 8 matchups and through the rest of the season. Before we jump into our waiver wire pickups for the week, be sure to check out our website, thefantasychampions.com. Follow us on Twitter at the FFChamps, on Instagram at thefantasychampions. Like us at facebook.com/thefantasychampions. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or any other podcasting platform, be sure to subscribe. Anyway, just do it. Subscribe. We
know you want to. You listen to our show.
If you're listening right now and you clicked on it, just subscribe. It's easy. It's pretty easy thing to do. Exactly. Leave a review and share this podcast with your friends as well. If you're watching on YouTube, we have a running competition. If you get us to 1,000 subscribers, we will shave Rick's head at the end of the season. I'll do it mid-Super Bowl. Live.
That would actually be awesome. Live during this, like before the Super Bowl, like Super Bowl pregame.
Just shave your head.
Just shave my head,
so if we get to 1,000 by the end of the season, then there you go. We'll shave Rick's head. Click the bell for notifications and then like and comment down below. So let's jump into our waiver wire targets for this week. It obviously another very interesting week. Everything went kind of according to plan. Some things were a little wonky.
Some things, yeah.
Like the 49ers backfield.
I don't want to talk about that one.
Me and Rick are like matching up in like 3 leagues this week. I kind of don't know how that happened.
We might split in victories, but I don't know how it's going to... We're pre-recording on Monday, so everything depends on the Monday night game.
For both matchups, which is kind of funny.
Yes, yeah.
So yeah, we're going to go over our favorite waiver wire ads for the week, and we'll start at the quarterback position and just talk about some guys that might be good streamable options for this week if they're not already picked up and owned on any teams. But anyway, so give me a guy, Rick.
There's actually some good streaming options this week. I think the number one guy on this list is Derek Carr, but for me, the number one guy, it might be. It's so gross to say, but Baker Mayfield. I mean, he was so good once Odell went out, and it feels like a lot of people have been saying that.
He's got Cleveland next week.
What is it?
I said he's got Cleveland next week.
Baker Mayfield has Cleveland.
I'm sorry. He's got the Raiders. I got it. I mixed it up. Sorry. Forgive me. All right.
No, I'm just messing with you.
Brain's moving a little slow this week.
Yeah. Some people were saying that Baker and the Browns maybe have been forcing the ball to Odell this year. And that's been said in the past too. And once Odell went down, I hope he has a speedy recovery. But once he went down, that Mayfield just kind of spread the ball and was just throwing to the open guy rather than just trying to feed like Landry and Odell. So that might benefit him. And against the Raiders, who have struggled against quarterbacks this year,
right?
And the game will be in Cleveland as well. I think he could be very efficient. But you have a lot of options this week. There's a lot of good streamable players.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't have a bad matchup against the Raiders, but the thing that concerns me is that Baker has not had any other, like, this is his first 3 or more touchdown game of the season.
Yes.
And actually, if you go back into 2019, he had 3 touchdown games last year. So this is the 5 touchdowns in a game, something we haven't seen from Baker, I don't think ever. So he was definitely efficient. He had a really, really good game. The throw at the end of the game to basically win was just money. That's Baker Mayfield swagger right there. That's what you want him to be. I do think you're right. Having Odell on the field really damages Baker Mayfield for some reason, because I think he feels like he has got to force the ball into Odell's hand. And to be honest with you, maybe it's Odell forcing him to throw it into his hand.
Yeah. No,
you know what I mean? Like pressuring him into
that. With Mayfield, though, is he hasn't thrown the ball 40 times yet this season in a game. Yeah. Like he usually throws the ball around like 20 to 30-something times a game.
Right.
So they don't throw the ball a lot. So if he's not efficient, then he's going to be a total waste of a fantasy asset.
Yeah. Yep. I would agree with that. For me, I think there's 2 guys.
Okay.
That I would really kind of target for the week. But my favorite, and I hate to say this because every time I do it, every time I tell you to pick him up, he just doesn't do what I want him to. But Jimmy G against the Seattle Seahawks.
Yep. That was going to be my next guy to say.
He has, he's had some okay games against New England. He was trash.
Actually, I had 5 incompletions, but 2.
2 picks, no touchdowns. So yeah, he did not have a good game against New England, despite the fact that they won. What was it, 40-something?
It felt like 40-something. I think it was only 20-something though.
Yeah. But anyway, the week before he had 26 fantasy points, threw 3 touchdowns against the Los Angeles Rams. So I think against Seattle, where he's going to have to score, he'll come out and do that. And then the other player that I was thinking about was, it feels like it's gross, but he's actually had a lot of really good games this year, and that's Teddy Bridgewater.
Yep, that was the other guy I was going to bring up.
Coming into the season, we didn't really think of him as a guy that would have a okay rushing floor, and some games he rushes and some games he doesn't. I guess it depends on how effective he is passing the ball, but he might give you a little bit of a rushing floor in games, and you also have him getting, I think it was his best performances were against Raiders week 1, 20. He had 29 against this is probably inflated because I'm looking at the wrong statistics.
Against Arizona, yeah, I have it up. Against Arizona,
it was 28.
He had 27.
27, okay. And then against Atlanta, he had, I'm guessing, 20.
He had 20.8.
So anyway, yeah, he's had some really decent games. And if you're streaming quarterbacks, he is definitely a guy that I would start against Atlanta this week.
Yeah, he had 20 points last time he played Atlanta. This time it's at home. And he feels like he's got a pretty good floor against bad teams. Against good defenses, he's going to struggle like hard, like Tampa Bay, Chicago. He got 9 and 11 points. But other than those games, once he plays, he's a pretty consistent guy where he's going to do good against bad teams. And against Atlanta defense, I feel like he's going to be a guaranteed like somewhere between like 17 to like 23 fantasy points.
Yeah. I don't, like I said,
maybe even 17 to 25, like somewhere in there.
Yeah, he's not going to like blow you out of the water and get 30.
No, he's not.
I think Jimmy G definitely has the higher ceiling for this week.
Jimmy G, I would say Jimmy G and Mayfield have higher ceilings than Bridgewater, but Bridgewater, I feel like will guarantee you get at least like 18 points.
Now, I'm curious. I'm just going to look them up to see what the percentages are. I love Sleeper started adding some of the start and roster managed or owned percentages on their app. They've been adding like little tiny things all season that make me love it. You remember week 1 when everyone in our league was like, I hate sleeper.
Yeah, and
now it's actually good. But one guy that I would definitely take a look at is Carson Wentz. He's owned in 67% of leagues right now. So obviously your league probably doesn't have him available. But if he is available, he would be a good stream as well because he's playing the Dallas Cowboys this week. So, and he's had some pretty great games. So if he's still out there on your waiver wire, I would go pick him up. I'm curious to see. Hold on, let me just pull it up. Where has Carson Wentz landed over the last 4 weeks? Because that's when he started going off.
Yeah, and he
is the wide receiver 3.
The quarterback 3, you mean?
Over the last quarterback 3. Did I say wide receiver 3? Good God, man!
Yeah,
I've done this. I've done that. We were off the show, and I was literally saying the wrong things off the show. So that just shows you where it went. Except it was running back instead of quarterback. But anyway, quarterback 3 overall in the last 4 weeks. On the whole season, from weeks 1 to 7, Carson Wentz is currently a quarterback 7. So he has definitely been a lot better than advertised.
Yes, yeah.
But I would pick him up to
and he has Jalen Reagor, who just got activated off of IR today, coming back. And I think Jeffrey might play this week too. So he's got 2 receivers coming back.
Yep.
So,
but there isn't anyone. I mean, if you're desperate for a play, I don't think Carr is a bad idea. But I do feel like that's a bad idea if you're that desperate. But he's had 22, 27, and 22 the last 3 weeks. So
sure. Yeah,
not a horrible play. It's just if I had to rank the guys we just talked about, he would be at the bottom.
Yeah, me too, probably. But still a streamable option.
Yeah. So you got plenty of options for this week. Usually there's only like 1 or 2 guys. This week it's like 4 or 5.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're gonna have to we'll have to see what happens. Obviously, some guys will be more successful. Like I said, Garoppolo's gonna get like 12 points this week and burn me. Every time I buy into you, Jimmy G, ruin my soul. But let's talk about some guys to pick up off the waiver wire. There's not really a lot at the running back position, so we'll go through a lot of that. But one of the guys that I would definitely target this week is La'Mical P. Ryan. I'm pretty sure I properly said that from the last time. But anyway, he if you watched him in the game, there was some moments where it was like he looks like a Jets running back. He looked like Le'Veon Bell, where you didn't really have a lot of he had a lot of opportunities,
right?
But he just wasn't super efficient. But there was some good runs for him, some really really good runs for him. He had 11 rushes, 3.5 yards a carry, got a touchdown, so he wasn't great. But he also got some receiving work. So if his role and from when he played against Miami at 58% snap percentage, this week was 67. He had 7 carries against Miami the week before after they got rid of Bell. This week he had 11. So he's had a little bit of receiving work, 6 targets, 4 catches over the last couple weeks. So I think they're going to slowly move in the direction of using this guy P. Ryan, but I think P. Ryan, or however you say your name. But I think obviously the difficult part is that he has Kansas City, New England coming up, and then a bye week. So it's not going to be a easy set of games. And then you got Los Angeles Chargers coming out of the break, but then it's Miami, Raiders, Seattle. It's a good stretch of games if you need some streamers. So I would pick him up this week if you have roster space and just as he increases workload, people are going to be running out and trying to grab him.
Yeah, he's not bad. The problem is that Jets offensive line is
it's terrible.
I don't think he'll ever average 5 yards a carry if he gets a lot of work, just because that offensive line, he's probably going to hover around like that 3 to 4 yards a carry all season. So that's the only concern with him. But he could get, if his work stays at about this, if he gets, 13, 14, 15 touches a week, then I think he's definitely worth an ad. But I would kind of tamper expectations for what he can actually accomplish this season.
Do you have a guy?
Yeah, the guy I want, it's very short term, but Carlos Hyde this week. When Chris Carson got injured, I believe Carlos Hyde in half PPR had about 17 fantasy points.
Yeah.
And he was very, very solid. And I think Penny has already been ruled out for this week because they were asking if Rashad Penny could come back since Carlos Hyde is injured. They're taking it very slowly with Penny, considering he tore his ACL at the end of last season.
Yeah.
And he had a setback as well in the beginning of this year. So Hyde's going to get all of the work pretty much. DJ Dallas will get a little bit, but it's mostly going to be Carlos Hyde. And he had 15 carries for 68 yards when Carlos Hyde Chris Carson went down. He had 15 fantasy points. So next week against San Francisco, who has a good defense, but not quite as good as last season, he could probably get you about 15 points. And if Carson misses any more time, Carlos Hyde can get you about 15 points a week for the next 2-3 weeks. Yeah. Which is very valuable at the running back position right now.
I think, I totally agree with you. The Mike Davis pickup earlier this year when McCaffrey went down, was obviously something that was very beneficial to fantasy teams. I think last year it was kind of, and even this year to some extent, it's difficult when a running back goes down that doesn't really have a good handcuff. Not that Carlos Hyde sucks by any means, but who doesn't have like last year you saw Saquon go down for 8 weeks, and Wayne Gallman comes in, and Gallman wasn't really that good. He had 1 or 2 good games, and then it was ugh. So, but Mike Davis has filled in the McCaffrey role very well for Carolina. And I think Carlos Hyde, who was, he got a majority of the snaps in Houston when he was there, and, obviously wasn't very efficient. But I think in the Seattle offense, where you have as good a quarterback as you can get in Russell Wilson, they're going to be able to move the ball down the field regardless of how the running game is playing. You know what I mean? And if he gets enough red zone opportunities, he's going to score touchdowns. And that's really, for fantasy football, that's going to cap weeks. Even if he rushes for, 18 times for 40 yards and he still scores a touchdown and gets 3 catches, he's fine. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So I think he's going to get that red zone opportunity. He could fill that role of Chris Carson for a good portion of the next couple weeks. And, barring if Rashad Penny does return, if he's out for 2 to 3 weeks,
I think Penny's probably going to be out for at least another 2-3 weeks, which is probably how long Carson is out.
Yeah. So I think he's a good ad for teams that desperately need a running back at this point. I think Edmonds is also owned in a lot of leagues at this point.
He is, but if he's not, he should.
If he's not, he should be. You should get him on your team. I would spend a lot of waiver budget on Edmonds because I think he's going to be very, very good. Tevin Coleman's also coming off. I think he was on IR. I think he's going to be available next week. I'm not sure I would want him at all.
I just after
watching the 49ers,
I don't
it's
want
not worth
anything to do with the 49ers backfield the rest of the season.
Unless
it's Mostert.
What about this will be the final running back we talk about. What about the Gus bus?
Yeah, I was actually going to bring him up. I wouldn't mind picking him up, especially if Ingram does miss this week, because I think he's going to be a game time decision, depending on how he practices and stuff this week. So if he misses any time, and he does miss this week, Gus Edwards, it should be an absolute buy, because he's probably going to get more work than Dobbins, unfortunately.
That's true. I mean, they might run with Dobbins because they'll probably have that opportunity. What I would do if I was the Ravens at this point is give Dobbins the work.
If I was the Ravens, I would try to trade Mark Ingram because I think Gus. I
agree. I agree with that. I just mean in the context with Ingram being out and you winning games, just get Dobbins the work, get him the opportunities, get him the experience. It doesn't really Gus Edwards is never going to start for your football team. You drafted J.K. Dobbins to be that guy, so get him into the game. You know what I mean? How hard is it? I think they might do it this week. They didn't do it during the game when Ingram went down, but I think it's something that might trend in that direction with Dobbins. But Gus Edwards has been the guy for the most part in the secondary role behind Mark Ingram. So it wouldn't be shocking to me if they went to Dobbins because they used the draft capital on him, but it also would not shock me to see Gus Edwards be there. So get one, if Dobbins is on your waiver wire, get Dobbins. If Gus Edwards is on your waiver wire, get Gus Edwards. Sure. If somebody comments on this video and says both are on the waiver wire, what do I do? J.K. Dobbins.
Probably just because more upside,
Yeah, more upside. But anyway, let's move to the. Is there any more running backs you want to talk about?
Nope.
So let's quickly move through the wide receivers, and then we'll talk briefly about tight ends. Because Rick was yelling at me about keeping this within 25 minutes. But so we have a couple of guys. Sterling Shepard, I think, not just because he's on this rankings list as the number one guy, but because he had a really great week this week. I actually saw him when they I think they activated him. Was he on IR? Is that correct?
Yeah, they activated him last minute.
And then they put him in the game and he had a really good game. But when they said he was going to play this week, I was like, I checked, our home league and I was like, is he available? I don't have any roster space, so I was like, I'm not going to pick him up. But he does have a really easy rest of season schedule. He was the wide receiver 2 last year on this team. Slayton was the 3 guy, by the way. So it was Golden Tate, Sterling Shepard, and then Darius Slayton. And it looks like that is kind of the tree right now. But Shepard is clearly the guy that they want to throw the football to, at least for Daniel Jones. And Darius Slayton did take a hit. So I would go out and get Shepard because I think that is that's probably my favorite wide receiver out of the week.
Yeah. When Shepard's healthy, he is, I think, the number one target in that offense. The problem is just health. And how long is he going to stay healthy? Because he's kind of like Evan Ingram in the fact that he's always injured. So we'll see how that plays out rest of the season, but I would definitely try to pick up Shepard if he's available.
How much waiver budget?
I'm not trying to go out of my way because he's the wide receiver, and it's just there's so many good wide receivers. Like I'd rather spend the waiver budget on a running back, honestly, at this point. But if I'd still probably spend like $20.
Okay. I'm not against that. Ayuk is a little bit of a different scenario. Debo, I think he pulled his hamstring, so he might be out for a couple weeks. Obviously, opening up opportunity for Brandon Ayuk. The problem is their rest of the season schedule is just god awful, and I don't know how much real. He's a rookie wide receiver, so he's going to be inconsistent and all over the place. I mean, if he's in your league and you have an extra roster spot, and guys like Shepard, I would even say Higgins and others are not available. I would maybe add Ayuk if you need that wide receiver depth, but I wouldn't go out of my way to go add him.
See, I agree with you. But for this week in particular, I think Ayuk's going to have a good week.
Because he's playing Dallas.
Because he's playing Seattle, who ranked 32nd against.
I meant to say Seattle. See, this is so bad.
and as you said, Debo is probably going to be out. Even if Debo's not out, though, Ayuk this week with Debo was almost better because the attention was on Debo. Like I think Ayuk had 115 receiving yards this week on 6 catches, so pretty good. And he still had like 7 or 8 targets and was involved in some end arounds as well. So they like to get both guys involved. Yeah. So even if Debo plays, I think Ayuk could be a good play this week just because of the matchup. But long term, the schedule's tough. So I wouldn't really, and he's a rookie wide receiver, so I wouldn't like. Although, I mean, there's been plenty of good rookie wide receivers this year. Yeah. But just consistency sometimes is tough with rookie wide receivers. Yeah. So I think he's going to be up and down all year, but this week he might be up. So if you need a player this week for a flex, I'd put some money on him.
Rashard Higgins.
Yeah, he's another good one. With Odell out, he's going to play that Odell role. Is he going to be as good as Odell, though? I'm not sure. And Odell was, like a wide receiver 2? So he's still worth a pickup, but again, temper expectations.
Right. He's more. What it looked like on Sunday when Odell went down is that he was playing the slot role, but I'm not sure how accurate that is. Excuse me.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't really watch any of that game. So.
Yeah, I was watching for Kareem Hunt.
Yeah, but he's
not a bad. He's not a bad ad. I think obviously some other wide receivers are going to get more opportunity in this offense, and Baker has thrived without Odell. So Higgins definitely should be a guy that you should at least consider adding. There's some other guys really quickly to talk about, I guess. Corey Davis caught a touchdown this week, but I'm not amped on Corey Davis. He's going to be up and down all season. We've gotten to that point where it's like we know what their offense looks like.
That is very true, but Davis has scored at least 10 fantasy points every week this season. He hasn't scored more than like 12 though, or 13. 13 was his high.
Because he keeps missing. He either misses time or he scores a touchdown. Yeah. It's one or the other. There's no in between.
He had 13, 11. Well, he had 9.4, so that was his worst game of the season, 9.4. But he had 13, 11, 9.4, and then 12.5. Yeah. So he consistently has been pretty good. I think he is worth an ad, but I'd probably rather the other guys.
The problem is he's going to be a guy that I pick up on my waiver wire, and then he just sits on my bench for the rest of the week.
Exactly. Yeah, he did have 10 targets this week, though.
Yeah. I mean, I ain't excited.
No. I did mention Jalen Reagor's coming off IR, and with Deshaun Jackson going on IR, he's probably going to play that Deshaun Jackson role. So I think he's worth a pickup. Mm-hmm. There's somebody deep on this list. I don't necessarily think he should be added, but he's very interesting, and that's rookie Denzel Mims. In the first half of the game with Sam Darnold, I think he had 4 catches for like 40-something yards, and then that was pretty much his day. But he still had, I think he led the team in targets and receptions. So as he gets into the offense, I think we could see some big weeks with him. The problem is, I'm not trying to own any Jets players, right? And I don't think he's going to really do anything big this year because of that. But if you are in a deep league, I would definitely keep your eye on him.
Okay. Let's talk about tight ends really quickly and then conclude this sucker. Okay. So obviously, I think my personal, we'll both pick one guy, but my personal pickup this week would probably be Dallas Goedert.
Yeah, that was who that's gonna say. It's gross.
I did it this week because I wanted to see what would happen, and then I dropped him 5 seconds later because they said he's not going to be back until like maybe week 10. His bye week is week 9, so that means you're not going to have him week 8, 9,
right?
And then he'll be back week 10. So, but I think without Zach Ertz for a lot of the season at this point, Dallas Goedert is going to be the wide receiver that they want to target. Even like Richard Rodgers, who's the other guy, he had 6 targets or something like that. Yeah. So he had a relatively decent week. So Goddard is going to take that role. He's going to be that guy. The concerning factor with Goddard is that you are going to have to eat a couple weeks. So do you get ahead of the 8 ball and just stick him in if you have IR slots, probably just stick him in your IR slot for a couple of weeks and wait, or is it not worth wasting your time?
Yeah, probably not. It depends. It depends what your team looks like. I'd probably pick him up, but if you already have a good bench, then he's not going to be worth it.
Yeah.
My guy, if you're streaming tight ends this week, which good luck with that. But if you are streaming tight ends, I'd say probably Trey Burton or Richard Rodgers. Burton's playing he had 19 points before the bye against Cincinnati. He's only played 3 games this season, Trey Burton, but he's gotten 5, 6, and 5 targets. So he's at least kind of involved in the offense. Mm-hmm. He's playing Detroit this week. And then Richard Rodgers with Ertz and Goedert out should get another 6 targets.
The other guy I would reference to is take a look at Austin Hooper.
Okay.
And he's owned in 59% of leagues right now. But with Odell going down, I know you didn't agree with this necessarily at the beginning of the show when we were talking about it, but I think Austin Hooper is going to. I think they're going to run. One of the problems I had when the season started was how much the Cleveland Browns were going to throw the football. And I think that, obviously that's not going to increase, but the target share is going to start to be more distributed. And I think that Austin Hooper is going to get more opportunity. So I would add him, but otherwise.
Yeah, I think that's fair though.
Okay.
He should be added.
That'll do it for this episode of the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. Week 8 is upon us. Week 7 is in the books. Let's just grind out the rest of the season, make the playoffs. How about you?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Check out our website, thefantasychampions.com. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram, and we'll talk to you on Thursday, Fantasy Champs.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Champions Podcast. Make sure you subscribe on iTunes and YouTube, and follow us on Twitter @TheFFChamps.